All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us as we talk about cybersecurity. My name is Jason Winchester, and I am the Executive Director here at GCFA. Let's begin by talking about some of the more common threats that you are likely to see and some real-world examples of how this works. Have you ever received a scam telephone call or text? Many of these are easy to spot. However, when a skilled attacker utilizes techniques like pretexting or social engineering, this can become much more difficult to detect. Social engineering is when scammers utilize public information sources like Facebook or church websites to make their attempt seem more believable. Older individuals are often scammed into wiring lots of money to people claiming a family member is hurt or in trouble. Scammers try to rush people or heighten emotions and incite fear to impair their victim's judgment. A real-world example of an attack using social engineering techniques happened to a company where an old friend of mine used to work. An attacker used information found on the victim's company website to determine who the CEO was, and then targeted the receptionist. The attacker sent a spoofed email that appeared to come from the CEO requesting her cell phone number so he could discuss a secret morale-boosting project with her offline. When she began communicating with the attacker through text, it became untraceable by the security systems put in place to protect the employees. During this process, the attacker gained her trust over several texts, and she was asked to purchase $25 $50 gift cards as a reward for an upcoming company meeting. Thankfully, she reached out to the finance department for assistance because she could not afford to buy that many gift cards. Finance recognized that this was a suspicious activity, and she avoided being scammed. Computer or application vulnerabilities may not be quite as obvious to the average person, but the updates that you regularly get on your computer and other devices is a direct result. Bad actors are constantly looking for new ways to gain access to your data, and so they rigorously test popular software and hardware for flaws that weaken the overall security of the system. Attackers will then target these vulnerabilities by using malicious software or malware and viruses to gain administrative access to your workstations or servers. One of the more interesting examples of this involves software that hijacks the infected computer's physical resources to mine cryptocurrency. The software is then spread throughout the victim's organization like a virus, and many of the company's workstations and servers are forced to dedicate a fraction of their CPU's processing power to this activity. While this is a minimally destructive example, it does illustrate how creative these criminals can be. Then there's ransomware, which is the type of malicious software that will lock you out of your own files by encrypting their contents until you pay a significant amount of money to the attacker. Perhaps the most notable example is what happened to the Colonial Pipeline. This attack cost the company $5 million in initial ransom payments, and they currently may be facing fines of $1 million from the Department of Transportation for safety violations related to this hack. This is in addition to the stop business processes that caused many customers to panic buy and could have caused significant risks to national security. We decided to focus on ransomware because of these three reasons. Ransomware is a growing threat. The number of reported attacks rose by 92% in 2021 compared to the prior year. The primary reason for this is because it is so profitable. The average ransom payment reached $812,000 during 2021 compared with $170,000 the year before. We're also starting to see attacks where the data is not encrypted, but is instead copied to the attacker's servers and then used to extort their victims by threatening to sell this data to the highest bidder. This has become such a successful business model that there are malicious developers that have created the software and sell it as a service to less skilled attackers. This is helping to reduce the barriers to entry and making this attack more accessible. Let's go over the anatomy of a successful ransomware attack. The first thing an attacker needs to do is discover a way to infiltrate your church's data. The most common way for them to gain this access is to utilize phishing techniques to trick users into sharing their password information. The most successful attackers will use publicly available information on your website or social networks in order to convince you that they are legitimate. Once they have this information, they can use it to log into your network by accessing the VPN or other external portal. If your church doesn't have a VPN, they may try to drop a USB thumb drive in the parking lot or on the floor near the break room on a Wednesday night. An unsuspecting worker may access the thumb drive to identify its owner, and access is granted. At this point, they will search the network for systems that have existing vulnerabilities that will allow them to escalate their access and get administrative power. This will grant them the ability to create their own users and/or install software on the servers and workstations. Then, they will try to secure their access by creating backdoors that only they know about. This will make sure that they have access to your network even if they're discovered and their initial method of entry is blocked. Now they have administrative rights and a dependable path into your network. It's time to do the research to find the most valuable data. They will use their elevated access to search all servers and workstations for important shared files or databases that contain private member information. They achieve this by using custom software that helps them scan for patterns like birthdays or social security numbers, or simply by searching for files with words like donations or accounts in the name. Once they have their targets acquired, they will often look for additional security measures that they may need to disable, like antivirus software or backup files of the targeted data. These backup files are often deleted first in order to make it impossible for the victim to recover without paying the ransom. Finally, the attackers will disable security, delete backups, and encrypt the targeted data, making it impossible to read the data without the key that only they hold. They will then notify the church that their confidential data is being held hostage, and the only way to get it back is to pay a large ransom. After an attack like this, you have a couple of options. You can ignore the ransom demand and attempt to recover your data, or you can pay the ransom. The first option requires that you have the data backed up in a protected system that was not accessible to the attackers. You would also need to be sure that all network access that the attacker had has been removed. If not, the attacker may retaliate in a more destructive manner once they discover you're not willing to cooperate. They will often threaten to expose the church to the news or to their membership if their demands are not met. For this reason, 26% of organizations who were able to restore data from backups still decided to pay the ransom in 2021. If you decide to pay the ransom, you may get to access your files, but there is a very real chance that the attacker will just take the money and not help you to recover your data. Many companies are choosing to pay. Among organizations with encrypted data, 46% paid ransom to their attackers. In either case, there is a high likelihood that the stolen data will be sold on the dark web for additional profit. So, we can see that some of the major impacts of a successful ransomware attack involve loss of data, such as private member information, church financial statements, accounting software data files, and more. This can lead to significant operational delays due to the inability to access critical files or data needed for the church to perform all administrative functions, as well as the IT support team being committed to forensic investigation and recovery. An attack like this is seldom a private event, and any public disclosure will likely have a lasting impact to the church's reputation and member trust. Imagine what it would feel like to have to share with your members that their family's information was stolen due to a lack of security in your technology. Of course, the ransom itself is a major component in the financial impact of these types of attacks, but it doesn't stop there. In most cases, a recovering organization employs the service of a cybersecurity consulting firm to help eliminate the threat and secure their network after being attacked. This is especially true for churches who often rely on volunteers for their IT support, and these people may not have the skills needed to complete this recovery. Additional consulting firms may be needed for legal purposes or additional response teams. You may have a cybersecurity insurance policy, so many of these costs may be covered, but insurance carriers are becoming more restrictive in terms of underwriting requirements and coverage. An attack like this may exclude you from coverage in the future or cause your rates to increase significantly. So how should you respond? Well, the best option is to be prepared so that you can avoid this altogether. We feel the best strategy for mitigating these risks is one, to start with ensuring that you can recover if attacked. The next step is to protect your network and the technology on it by implementing hardware or software solutions that are designed to stop these attacks before they can cause damage. Finally, we recommend adding an ounce of prevention by regularly training church workers on the threats they are likely to face throughout their day. Let's take a look at recovery. We discussed in the previous example that the attacker will try to find the backups to your data and delete them prior to encrypting your files. It is possible, however, to create a backup that is protected from this type of attack. When you are considering a backup solution, you need to, you're considering this type of backup solution, you need to make sure that the backup copies are immutable. This means that the data is protected from alteration or deletion once the backup has been taken. If the data is immutable, then the attackers will not be able to delete or encrypt the current backup files, and you will have access to recover your data. You should also plan to keep copies of your backups separate from your primary backup location. This could be physical copies kept on external hard drives that are regularly disconnected from the network, or remote backup locations, including the cloud. Cloud options are very popular with churches because they provide an easy and inexpensive way to keep their data safe and secure. If you do not currently have a cybersecurity insurance policy, you should consider it. If you're the victim of an attack like this, the costs of recovery will most likely be crippling to your church, and the proceeds could help you keep moving forward. Once you have a plan for recovery in place, then it's time to start working on implementing technical protections for your church. Let's first focus on the external network. Okay? These solutions will help make sure that the attackers cannot get into your network in the first place. When you think of internet security, you can't help but think about the firewall. This device is the gatekeeper that ultimately decides what traffic gets in and what goes out. If you have a VPN, then this is most likely the device that you are connecting through. Basic firewalls can control where traffic is allowed to come from and how it gets passed to your internal network. Some of the most capable firewalls come with intrusion prevention software that is continuously updated as threats are discovered and is used to inspect the network traffic for malicious activity. Spam and phishing protection, or email filtering, is designed to scan all incoming and outgoing email for content that is not desired. This may be simply annoying spam messages, but it could be mail that contains a dangerous payload. Modern secure email gateways can also detect the presence of language in the email that is often an indication of a targeted phishing attack. Many antivirus suites offer this service as part of their product. However, you should be aware that the content must be on your computer for the application to scan it. The best solutions will stand between your email server and the attacker. This will ensure that the content is blocked before ever crossing your perimeter network. Web content filtering is designed to perform a similar function, but for web traffic. Many of the threats that your workers face originate from the websites that they visit or from links they may receive in instant messages or emails they get through the secure email gateway. An effective web filtering service monitors all communication by analyzing the URL information that you or your applications are trying to access. If an address is recognized as suspicious or inappropriate, then that request is redirected and access to that content is effectively blocked. It is important to think about how the provider of this service collects the information that it uses to classify the requests, because it will impact the quality of the service that they are able to provide. Very large organizations like Cisco process billions of internet addresses requests on a daily basis across the globe. This gives them an edge when it comes to sheer size of the data for their security teams to analyze. The more they see, the more they are able to find. With the rising popularity of cloud-based productivity suites like Office 365 or Google Workspaces, coupled with the rising trend of remote work, your ability to access your church's documents and data is becoming easier every day. Where possible, you should set security requirements in a centrally located place to ensure that the required security rules are followed. For example, access to your online productivity suites from a mobile device should be denied by default unless the device has a password, is encrypted, and is running an approved operating system. These restrictions can only be applied if you are using a mobile device management solution. Strong password policies should be required, and access to your VPN or any other data should be protected by multi-factor authentication if at all possible. It may be hard to believe, but after all of that is in place, there is still a risk that something dubious can get through to the internal network. The next step is to work on the individual workstations and servers that make up the internal network. In the example of an effective ransomware attack covered in the previous slides, the hacker was able to elevate their access to administrative power because of the software vulnerabilities that they discovered in the network. Old and outdated workstation and server operating systems are a big target for these types of attacks. Software companies like Microsoft are committed to monitoring and updating their software only for a temporary amount of time. After the software has been declared end of life, you may still be able to use it. However, any vulnerabilities that are discovered are not fixed. This makes it easy for the bad guys to take advantage of this opportunity. All they need to do is hop around until they find a device with some known vulnerabilities and exploit them. This applies to applications like Chrome or Firefox and many others as well. It is therefore vitally important that you review the systems in your environment to make sure that they are supported by their developers and regularly patched. In a small environment, this can be easily done on an individual basis. However, in a large environment, you will want to explore a centrally managed tool. And both Microsoft and Apple have host-based firewalls on their workstations and servers, but they're not easy to manage from a single location, and because of this, are often disabled. This can cause you to have several different configurations across your church and limit your ability to analyze their effectiveness. Most antivirus suites do have a host-based firewall that can be implemented to make this easier to manage. Now the above technical protections are in place, the next step is to educate yourself and your workers so that you can recognize when hackers attempt to steal your login information and gain access to your systems. It is important to keep in mind that security threats are always changing, and so you need a partner that consistently releases new information that is relevant to you and how your church operates. There are many online solutions that can provide you with this type of training, like the companies you see listed here. Most of them also include the ability to send fake phishing emails to your users to test them. The best ones have additional tools and tests that help you get the most out of your investment. For example, KnowBe4 provides you with templates that you can use to create your own security and compliance policies, as well as a project planning tool to help guide you in achieving your goals. These documents may enable you to get discounts on new or existing cyber insurance policies as well. I've just shared a lot of information with you, and starting to implement these solutions may feel a little overwhelming. It takes a lot of time and effort to research the best technologies in order to keep your data safe and develop an IT strategy that is effective and affordable. You also need to make sure that the technicians performing this work are skilled and experienced enough to ask the right questions to make sure that the configuration of these solutions is customized to fit your church's individual needs. Our role at GCFA is to do the legwork for you and provide you with low-cost, high-quality IT service options. We've worked hard to attract high-quality systems engineers and consultants that can help you to implement and maintain any of these systems. We've also developed a suite of services that we can provide the protection that we've recommended throughout this presentation. We call this all-inclusive software solution the worry-free IT bundle. Let us worry about IT so you can focus on the mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Now, of course, we would love to be your primary IT service provider, but we are happy to serve in any capacity that fits your church. If you have a volunteer workforce that manages your IT, we can certainly provide you with the software at a much lower discount than you can probably get And we even have support representatives in our call center who can provide you with the gap coverage if your current support system is not available. So we can also help you document your IT organization so that knowledge transfer can be less of a pain point. So yeah, that's it. Are there any questions? So any of these services that are mentioned in this presentation, you can ramp these services up. Even if you were to purchase the worry-free IT bundle, we can put together a plan that will allow you to implement these one at a time, whichever, so that it isn't as big of a shock if that is impactful to your organization. So yes, they can be ramped up. Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat either, so we'll go ahead and move on. I just wanted to thank you, everybody, for spending your afternoon with me as we discuss this important subject. If you have any additional questions later, or you would like to discuss the options and how they may fit your church, please contact me or Jacqueline Givens at the information you see on your screen, and we'll be happy to set up a meeting with you guys. God bless and have a wonderful day.